taking us to bring us back home even before we have properly thought through. Okay, Honorable Robert Mbui, thank you so much for that. And Honorable Martha Wangari, we were also expecting Eddie Oketch, who's the first-time Migori senator. As soon as he joins us, we will be able to bring him on. But Honorable Mbui, maybe I start with you on this one, because I see a quote by your party leader on the front page of the Standard. Kalonzo Musyoka, Wiper leader, is quoted as saying, "I was well guided by my party and Azimio top leadership. After we realized the process of election of speakers and deputy speakers was marred by corruption, we decided that we needed to keep it clean and in that case, step out of the race." It's a very strong allegation to make, to say that the election of speakers and deputy speakers was marred by corruption. And these are people who will preside over the House for the next 5 years, could be longer, depending on what Parliament decides. Help us understand why he saw it that way.
Well, I think we are not strangers in this country, and you saw what happened, that after the last election, the numbers of leaders elected in the different coalitions were very clear. Because we campaigned for months, and there were those that were in the coalition of Azimio, One Kenya coalition party, and there are those that were in the Kenya Kwanza coalition. And people went out there and convinced the electorate to elect them under those coalitions. But immediately after the announcement by the IEBC chair that the Honorable William Samoei Ruto had won the election, suddenly the numbers started tilting. We saw people that were in our coalition follow each other and take do photo shoots at the lawns of his current residence. And that has been going on since then up to now. And there are a lot of people that have been called. Now, I don't know, I wouldn't want to say that it was a monetary inducement, but I do want to say that clearly these people breached, that's why my party leader says it's corruption. They breached the agreement they have with the general public that elected them. And so when he realized that we did agree that he would go for the seat, but we were of the opinion that people would vote with their conscience and would vote for the right leadership. But then when we discovered that a lot of whipping had taken place.
At what point did you discover that this whipping was happening?
I think that the night before.
Some behind the scenes.
The night before. Because there were a lot of meetings with senators that were on our side to try and know exactly what was happening. And we realized that at that time, a lot of them were already, some of them, not a lot of them, some of them we could tell were already blowing hot and cold. So clearly there was no reason
so
for
Azimio allied or Azimio senators seemingly leaning towards voting for...
I mean when we talk about corruption allegations, it cannot be for the Kenya Kwanza leaning whatever senators, because those ones would have expected them to vote naturally for their candidate. But there were a lot of people that were on our side that seemed to have leaned away from us. So that's why we realized there was really no reason.
Did they give you any reasons why they were leaning the other way? I
think you need to ask them, because you have a good idea
you
about the
people.
You know, I don't know how to speak for them, because they might take me up on that. But all the same, I think the fact is that the bad manners I keep talking about in politics, it reared its ugly head in the Senate and in the National Assembly, where people decided to go against their party positions. And that's what the problem was. In fact, I can tell you, Ahiga, if this election was not a secret ballot, the results would have been very different. But because it's secret ballot, people know no one will know who they voted for. So that gives them freedom to carry out those shenanigans of going against what we have agreed.
I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are about the activities within the National Assembly. But Honorable Martha Wangari is here.
Yeah.
As you look at this headline today regarding Wetangula Kingi, is this what you were expecting?
Of course, this is what we were expecting. And I think, Wahiga, we have just come from a campaign ourselves. I mean, there is several ways to win a vote. And you can actually convince someone just by calling them or talking to them. I feel very sad. And in any case, what Honorable Kalonzo is saying and has done is not new. he has only lived to what we expected. You know, he started running in the National Assembly, then he decided to watermelon to the Senate. Then when we were in the House, then he has withdrawn. So you cannot now cast aspersions on members, including his own members who are elected under Wiper, in terms of bribery and in terms of, you know, exchange of money in the House. I think it would be very unfortunate for that statement to come from him. And with all respect to my colleague, Honorable Robert, I mean, we have been in this parliament. We have seen people who are elected and then change their desire to vote for another person. Same thing to the people we represent. You can have someone who was supporting you yesterday, you convince them and they support you today. And the reason it is secret ballot is that it gives you the freedom. But I think what we saw yesterday is an affirmation of the numbers for Kenya Kwanza. I mean, even in the Senate, it was super. I mean, 46, even with the staged walkout, we had the Amazon King still was able to get 46 votes. So I think for us, I would say here, and I've said here before, that you cannot make your disorganization to be a national crisis. I mean, if you are not organized as a party, the Azimio party, they are just confused. I mean, they tried to scuttle it. They tried to bring non-issues through Honorable TJ in the National Assembly, through in the Senate through Honorable Sifuna. I mean, just be organized. And the vote went well. In fact, there was no issue. There was no violence. That is what I would give to them. For the first time, they have actually behaved very well. And Azimio, by the way, we thank them for maintaining peace, not just now, even in the general election, that they have all actually agreed. And what you see the numbers improving and becoming higher than they expected is to say that we have agreed. We are supporting this person, and now the next task, Wahiga, and I will say it maybe just as an objective person, is that when you're elected speaker, what we expect of Honorable Wetangula, what we expect of Honorable Amazon Kingi, and the deputies, Kathuri and Boss Shole, is that now you are actually going to actually deal with every side of the divide. So we'll expect that you're impartial, you are able to superintend that house without being a Kenya Kwanza speaker, because at the end of the day, that house will have opposition and will have the government. So we'll expect to see.
Because you know who put you there.
Yeah.
How difficult a task do you think that?
It is not easy, but it has been done. We saw Honorable Marende, is it 10th Parliament?
That's why
who was rejected yesterday.
Yeah, he was rejected. He has already served. And in any case, I've served with the Tangula in 11th Parliament, and he has been there, he has been in the system. So it's just about, and that's why you saw when the handing over was being done by the speaker, outgoing speaker Muturi, gave a set of rulings, because you learn along the way. And it's also good to test someone new. And every time, don't forget, it's a political process. So at the end of the day, the majority will always have their way, but the minority have their say. But at the end of the day, it's a personal choice on how you run that house. You can decide to be partisan, which will not work for you, but you can also decide to be a nationalist and bring the house together, because we need Parliament to deliver, even as a unit and as an institution.
Honorable Mbui, maybe you can also chime in on that. We saw Moses Wetangula and the key role he played in the formation of Kenya Kwanza and the campaigns and so forth. And of course, for Honorable Kingi as well. You seemed to nod your head when I asked Honorable Wangari about the difficulty of being partisan at a time, or non-partisan at a time when you know who got you in there. You know what sort of fight there was. You know, the struggle.
Yeah, thank you, Aiga. You know, if you remember when Kenneth Marende was elected speaker, he immediately put his foot down and was non-partisan. And that was when he was in ODM. He had been elected MP for Emuhaya. And then he was elected speaker. He quit his MP and became the speaker. And he was, I mean, he's known for Solomonic wisdom. He's done, you know, he's done great things. And that was at a time when Kenya was actually split right down the middle. And in fact, that was immediately also after the post-election violence. So I think this was a tried and tested leader. And he managed to actually stay the course and be non-partisan. We have seen the last 10 years that I've been in Parliament, the Speaker many times would make decisions that are clearly aligned to what the executive wanted. And that's because the executive put him there. And I'm just saying that I know the new Speaker, Moses Wetangula, is a strong character. I hope that he will be able to resist any attempts by the executive to come and stifle Parliament, because ideally these three organs of governance are separate. They're totally independent. The judiciary should be independent, and it has expressed its independence even in the ruling they gave in the Supreme Court on the elections of the presidency. And so Parliament now has to also stamp its authority and be independent of the executive. If we can do that, then we will be able to move on. But I hope that the fact that even the phone calls that are being talked about that were being made to people to vote for a candidate were not coming from the candidate himself. They were coming from the president-elect, some of them. So I mean, clearly there is an interest in the president to have a speaker of his choice.
That's not true.
It's true. It's true that a lot of people are called. You know, the only thing is that, you know, I think we need to, as leaders, we need to have that strict cold honesty, because it's important that to note that the fact is the mobilization and the whipping was being done by Kenya Kwanza all the way from its top leadership. And people were called, people were convinced, and people voted in that direction. Now, what I'm saying is that Kenya Kwanza has its leader. And if the leader has an interest in a person to be speaker, then we have to be very careful as a country that this person does not serve the whims of the leader. That is what I'm saying. So Moses Wetangula now is Speaker of the National Assembly. He has Kenya Kwanza and Azimio under in his house. He has to be careful not to play to the whims. He should only do what is right for Parliament so that we can exercise our mandate to oversight that executive that has assisted him to become Speaker.
What would have held back the Azimio chair or presidential candidate from making the same calls?
He would have done exactly the same.
And maybe
because I can tell you, Wahiga, every executive, every head of state would want to control Parliament. So it's a matter now that Wetangula has been elected, we are now speaking to him to take his role as a speaker seriously. And I like that Honorable Martha Wangari has actually said it, and has said he has to be non-partisan and to run the House knowing that there's Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, and those are the people that will help him to be able to achieve the objectives of that House.
Honorable Wangari, the allegations that Honorable Mbui is making...
these are very serious aspersions.
To protest.
It is actually serious aspersions. But I want to just say, I mean, even we had a parliamentary group meeting ourselves to actually speak about these leadership positions. These guys, I don't know where they met. Then they now think because they did not come up with ways to win this vote, we are now calling the shots from the top. I mean, the mobilization is done even by candidates because it's a personal decision. For Honorable Wetangula to resign as being a senator, he needed this job. Otherwise, he would have been jobless. So if I were a candidate, I would call people, which is not, it's not unconstitutional and it's not against the law, to actually call people and convince them, what am I going to do? What am I bringing on the table? But I also think, even in the last parliament, we have had issues where we disagreed, even with Jubilee. And don't forget, Muturi was put there by Jubilee. So, I mean, the House has a chance to be independent. It is our choice to make. And I think that is something we will work towards, and I think that is both sides, to actually make Parliament what it should be. An oversight House, a legislation House, regardless of the political affiliation. But I also think any goal of any person who ran for president is to wield power. That is why you'll see that is the main goal. It's not to be number two. The actual goal is usually to be number one and be able to control or to be able to run government. But that doesn't mean that everything that you bring to the House, members have no say. We have had a say even when we have had a Jubilee-nominated speaker at 11th Parliament and even 12th Parliament. So it is possible to actually have an impartial House, to run an impartial House.
Let's talk a little bit about the word, that word oversight. Or you want to say something before we get into that? Okay, go ahead.
Allow me to ask kindly that Kenya Kwanza stop profiling us. Because you see, when I listen to my friend...
You are profiling yourself.
You know, when I listen to my friend Martha, she says that she wants to thank us that even during these elections, there was no violence.
There was no violence.
We didn't fight in the House and all that. But you know, Martha was in Jubilee, and Jubilee is in Azimio. So who is it you're talking to? Is it Wiper or ODM or Azimio?
I want to say very clear.
You've branded us. And
I am very clear.
Now I'm so surprised because we are with a lot of members that were members of Jubilee were in the same party with her.
How many?
And they're with us now.
How many? And that's why maybe there's no violence this time. Because last time when you were NASA, there was violence, even in the House. But people brought brought whistles in the House. That is 11th, 12th.
Can
have a history, a record.
Very interestingly, Ford Kenya and ANC were with us. So, now, excuse me, now they're with Kenya.
I think that is why there is no violence.
Suddenly, the part of the team of violence has moved to this side and they are not violent. And the team that was not violent comes this side. And so who is it you are accusing?
The majority are not.
And I think all these allegations of violence need to be quantified by reports.
But my point, Wahiga,
So no reports have been made.
My point, Wahiga, is that we can treat this 13th Parliament on a serious note to be a serious house of debate. You don't make allegations or fight outside the parliament or in the precinct and actually think you're representing people. We are also setting good example or bad examples to our children. So when we are seen throwing chairs and throwing bottles of water in the house and being cantankerous, we then send a bad message even to the younger generation. So I hope that we can be able to allow people to debate, disagree. You don't have to hold the same view, but everyone is entitled, and that floor is very powerful, to say whatever you want to say without being violent, without attacking the speaker, without attacking the clerk. We need to set a good example, like we have done in this election, that we have done election that is not violent, and the country, everyone was watching, international media. Even now, this 13th Parliament is on the focus and on the lens. Let us set a good example as a house that we can disagree respectfully without throwing words and without being violent in the house.
Allow me to also agree with her very seriously.
Then after this, I'll throw in my question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to agree with her. That we have to up the stakes and the game in Parliament. Yesterday, one of our members stood up on a point of order to try and query the issue about the candidacy of the candidate for Kenya Kwanza. And there was a lot of shouting. But let me say what I'm happy about is that when I hear a leader from Kenya Kwanza castigate that action, and yesterday, the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah also stood on the floor and said, look, we must listen to each other. This business of shouting at each other when people are talking is not parliamentary.
No, it's not.
I'm very happy that we are starting off actually from the right footing in terms of listening to each other, because you have an opportunity, say what you want to say, be heard, and then people can respond to you. I'm very happy because we've started off properly. But otherwise, at the beginning, a number of Kenya Kwanza members really did shout at the Honorable TJ. But I'm happy that their own leadership told them, no, we must change and we must operate in a better manner. And I hope that all members of Parliament, this 13th Parliament, will accept that we listen to each other and hear each other's opinion of the House.
And the good thing with this Parliament, it has also seen very many seasoned politicians make a comeback. And those of us who are doing third term, I'm doing third term, you're doing third term, so many of us have been there. So I think we have the responsibility of guiding even the new members of how this House should be and bring the decorum back to the Parliament and to the Parliament of that, because we have brought it to a level where you're even embarrassed. You go home and your child asks you, is that you? People should actually now realize we have a whole generation that is very woke in terms of even watching Parliament, what they perceive. So we need to set a good example. And this across it is actually bipartisan. If we do that, then this House will even deliver better than 12th Parliament or even 11th Parliament.
Let's talk a little bit about what one NGO, Mzalendo, and they review Parliament.
Yes.
And they study it and they release reports, has cited as missed opportunities of the 12th Parliament, because you need to understand what went wrong to figure out what the 13th Parliament can hopefully do right. On two issues, committees. The committee that probed the allegations of mercury in sugar and so forth, till today, Kenyans have never gotten clarity on what really happened. We just hear allegations of bribery, that members were paid to vote one way, and also the COVID fund probe, another matter that still remains somewhere up in the air, with many saying that when you have an executive that is keen to have the legislative vote in one way or the other, that there'll always be interference. How sure are we that we won't see that happening this time around? Honorable Wangari, let me start with you.
I would say, like I've said, is that, of course, I agree with you. There are things we missed, but there are also things we achieved in terms of the 12th Parliament. But I think what we would hope this time, and I think that would come right from the top and from the President, is that we have heard him say that he will let Parliament run, he will let the judiciary run, because we must disentangle ourselves to the perceived capture that has been there. So I hope that the goodwill, the political goodwill, will stem from the top, that Parliament will be free to amend things, would be free to vote the way they would want to vote. They would be free to actually interrogate issues without coercion or being directed.
What happens if political goodwill is withdrawn? Is Parliament ready to stand on
that is our test. I would say it is our test. And that's why I said, like the new speaker, we must steer this Parliament to actually get a voice back so that we're also getting respect from also the other wings of Parliament, of government. Because if you're not firm yourself, then it means even the executive will not be firm on dealing with you. They would know you can be swayed or you cannot be swayed. So I hope that we can take that up and bring back the sanity and the role that Parliament should play. That way, we'll be doing our job, really, because when you say you're supposed to oversight, you're oversighting the same government. And that's why when you get to the House, it doesn't even matter if you're WIPA, you're UDA, we have to do our work as parliamentarians, to oversight government, to represent our people, and to actually make laws that are making lives better for our Kenyans.
Honorable Mbui, I don't know how you describe the numbers set up now in Parliament, but no one has used the word supermajority, as was in previous terms. Is that a good thing? Do you then sense that there'll be it will be easier now for Parliament to assert itself with the kind of numbers that we have there?
Well, I think so. I think the fact that the Parliament is almost hung is a good thing because then any decision that comes from the House will be actually properly canvassed and debated. And by the time people cast their votes, it's going to be robust debate and serious whipping for voting. If when you have a supermajority, it has that negative connotation of people taking it easy and doing what they want. And the executive, in this case, is going to take time before they push any laws through Parliament. You saw that, in the last Parliament, we had this debate and this fight about the increase on VAT in fuel. And members fought very seriously against it, but it was pushed down the throats of Parliament. And that's a fact because there was even a physical fight. Sometimes, Wahiga, when you see physical fights, it's because now when democracy fails, members get to that point. But I'm happy that Parliament is hung in such a way that there can be a supermajority that can flex its muscle and force its way through. So there's going to be a lot of discussions on some of these things. So I think we're going forward, the numbers are going to be helpful. And I would urge that, I think our members don't seem to understand sometimes the role of Parliament. Parliament and executive are completely distinct, and there's no connection. But people think that if you're in Parliament and you belong to a party of or rather the ruling party, then you must support everything that the ruling party brings to the House. But parliamentarians are representatives of the people, not representatives of the executive. So members must understand that you must look at everything that is brought to you because you have the mandate to actually make the law and see whether it fits and favors the people that you represent before you pass it. So that's what I would caution within this Parliament, that members must canvass, talk to each other, forget about our political affiliations, agree to disagree where necessary, but agree when we find common ground, and especially things that are of concern and things that will be beneficial to those that put us in that House. Okay,
we're actually due for a break, but just before that, I want to give you both a chance to advise each other. What is your advice to Kenya Kwanza MPs? What is your advice to Azimio MPs this morning? I would say, and not just to Azimio MPs, I think to all MPs. And I would just pick from where Honorable Boy has stopped. Because I was in Jubilee in the tour of Parliament, but there are things we didn't agree with. I remember like the specific Finance Act of 2019, we opposed it because you were saying raise the amount that you buy a litre of paraffin. You can look at issues objectively, and I hope that we can do that work very well, not to just bring acrimony for the sake of it. So I would hope that the opposition will get from Azimio in this 13th Parliament will be constructive, it will be, and I think the House, if we have a good speaker, we actually will take a lot of these issues as positive criticism. And that is what our president-elect has already reiterated, that we would want that criticism from Parliament, even from the media, as long as it is adding value, as long as it is not just to derail a process, it is supposed to add value. So I think I would advise all of us, let us realize the role of Parliament, let us bring the honor back to Parliament, and realize the power that we hold under Article 1 of the Constitution is actually delegated from the people. Let us make lives better through the legislations that we pass, and we will scrutinize them, by the way. And hopefully, this Kenya Kwanza government has hissed at an amendment of the standing orders to even have these ministers come and appear
on the floor of the House, and it is possible.
Was that discussed?
During our PG.
Yeah.
And we hope that our president-elect can keep to that end, because we need to ask these questions, not on our own behalf, on behalf of our people. And that way, this government will be having checks and balances to ask actual questions, because as it is right now, you ask a question, it goes for 3 months, the CS does not appear, you have no way for recourse. Your people are asking, the chairman of the committees are trying to be ministers, and they are not, so we hope that will be more real on time, and it's something that we'll be hoping to push.
Okay, but you don't have any direct advice for Azimio MPs this morning. You prefer to...
I just hope that they can be constructive, and they can actually just play their role as MPs, as members of parliament, to be able to make this house very interesting. I'm hoping just what Honorable Robert has said, we'll have better parliament this time, because the numbers are also, they are not super like they were last time. So it will not be a chorus. All I hope is that it will not just for derail purposes, it will be constructive, and at the end of the day, to bring honor back to the 13th parliament. Okay,
that's your message. Honorable Mbui, do you have a message for Kenya Kwanza MPs?
Yeah, elections are over. Just the way the president-elect was elected is the same way the members of Kenya Kwanza were elected. And every one of those leaders elected have their own mandate. So I want to advise that they don't focus on the president's agenda. They also deal with their own agenda. They have constituencies to represent. They have people to speak on behalf of. So let them not forget and keep following the agenda of the president, because sometimes the agenda of the president could be it could also go against what their own constituents would want. So I would advise them that they have the power to make Kenya a better place. They can support what the executive brings to us that is positive, but they can also help us to oppose what we feel is not working well. And again, we have to help each other to oversight the administration together. And I'm saying this because I saw in the 11th Parliament, when we had cases of corruption that were being investigated by the Public Accounts Committee. And I think one of the cases involved a CS at that time that was responsible for the National Youth Service. A lot of money had been lost. The CS was called to the House. And members of the ruling party, members of parliament that belong to the political party, made it impossible for that CS to be even asked a question. So I would like them to not hold brief for the executive and just hold brief for the people that put them in the House in the first place.
Okay, that's a good place to take a break, but we still have a lot more to discuss. So on that note, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue focusing on the independence of Parliament. What does that look like, the bicameral Parliament? I'll also take you to page 9 of the Standard. A quote there by President-elect William Ruto: CDF will be back. It is value for money. And so much more. Keep sending in your questions and your comments on this show this morning. Just barely a day after the swearing in of members of the Senate and members of the National Assembly, and of course the election of those speakers and deputy speakers as well. What did you make of all that? 2242 is the SMS line. #Daybreak. We carry on with our programming after this short break. We'll be right back.